everyone, this is Katie from Katie Loves Classic Books, and I know it's been a really long time since I've been able to film a video, and I was so happy today when I realized that I had the space and the time to finally backtrack and film some wrap-ups. So I haven't filmed a video since December. Yeah, my living situation just got more crowded and busy, and I basically I have time to film but not the space mostly. So I finally found some, and I feel bad that I haven't wrapped up, January, February, March, and now April. So instead of just doing my latest wrap up, I want to try to go through all the months and do belated wrap-ups because I do want to talk about the books I've read because they are quite good. So I'm going to start today with my belated January wrap-up. And I read 4 books in January and actually had quite a good reading month and start to my reading year. So let's get straight to the books. So the first book I read in January was Middlemarch by George Eliot, and this was published in 1871, and what a great start to my reading year. I read a lot of this in December. If you guys did watch my December wrap-up, you'll notice it was quite short. That's because this is a big book, and I read most of this in December, and then with Christmas and just all the festivities and stuff, I didn't end up getting to read every day like usually do. But I finished this in the first few days of January, so that's why I'm wrapping it up for January. This is a Victorian novel, and probably one of my new favorite Victorian novels now. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. So this follows the inhabitants of a fictional town in England called Middlemarch, as the title suggests. And yeah, it's basically just about a lot of the inhabitants of the town and their relationships to each other. This was like an epic book, but yet not of, grandiose, adventurous things. It was an epic about a microcosm, this small town, and all their goings on. In terms of relationships and in terms of a lot of the things these people face, I found it still very, very relatable. I know this was written in Victorian England, but I feel like a lot of the human dilemmas and issues with relationships are still very relatable today, and that's something I very much loved about this book. In terms of romantic relationships, I found it very interesting. A lot of different scenarios played out. There were happy endings, which is good, and if it wasn't for some of the happy parts, I maybe wouldn't have loved this book so much, but there was some very satisfying, happy endings, which is good, but it wasn't all happy, which I think is relatable. Good things do happen, but not everything is good. I read one review, or maybe I listened to a review, I don't know, somebody reviewed this book, and said that they thought Middlemarch was all about disappointment. While I don't think the entire book is about disappointment, I thought it was an interesting observation because quite a few people do end up disappointed in various ways. But like I said, there are happy things though, so that's why I don't think it's all about disappointment. But I think that's an interesting thing to say. So some of the different relationship dynamics going on, more like romantic relationships, although there were friendships and family relationships and all of that as well. So there was one romantic relationship that I thought was probably the most realistic, and I liked it for its realism, was one where it seemed like they were very much into each other when they were, what do you call it? I was going to say dating, and I was like, that's not a Victorian term. Courting? Something like that. and then when they end up married, they both do end up disappointed. You see a lot in their relationship with like financial struggle, material struggle, and just how these everyday things can get to people, which I thought was important to talk about, and that was something I found relatable to today as well. The wife kind of felt like she didn't get the glamorous romantic life she wanted, and she was disappointed. The husband felt like he couldn't progress in his career perhaps the way he wanted because she was kind of holding him back, having to take care of her. So that was sad, but a very relatable storyline. There was another couple who had known each other since childhood, and all their struggles of trying to get together and their patience, and I found that sweet. The character the book starts out with, so I don't want to call her the main character because I really feel like all these characters are important, but maybe she's slightly more of a main character than the other ones, named Dorothea, and she's a young woman, and a very passionate young woman, and her passion just sometimes gets directed in the wrong ways. She just has all this passion. It's almost like she doesn't know what to do with it, so she just funnels it into things that maybe aren't always productive, especially at first religion. I don't think that ever lets up, but she's very zealous at first, and she puts a lot of her passion into religion and I believe charity and stuff like that. And because of this, she ends up with this older man and puts a lot into him as well, probably because she thinks she'll learn a lot and for religious reasons and stuff like that. And she also gets disappointed, but things are rectified later on, and she finally puts her passion, funnels her passion in a better suited direction for her. So this was just a really wonderful Victorian novel. Like I said, a new favorite, a wonderful way to start off the year. And in terms of characters and human relationships, I found this book entirely interesting and engrossing and relatable, and I highly recommend this if you are interested in reading it. So, the second book I read in January was The 12th Insight by James Redfield, and this was published in 2011, and I gave this 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, I want to say. So this is the 4th and final book in a series called the Celestine Prophecy series. If you've been watching my videos, you'll see me wrap up the other books in the series. It's a spiritual adventure series, and I have really enjoyed it for the most part, but this I thought was kind of pointless to read. I enjoyed all the other ones. If you're into spirituality and stuff like that, I definitely recommend the first one, The Celestine Prophecy. I think that one's really good and great to read by itself. The next 2 are good if you want to read them, but you don't really have to. And this 4th one is a total just miss it, in my opinion. I gave it 3 stars because, I don't know, it still reiterates some of the concepts that I think are good. I don't know, I just couldn't give it anything less. Unless I did. I don't really remember. It's been a while. But I'm pretty sure I gave it 3 out of 5 stars for reasons mostly because the series is good. And this wasn't entirely bad, but yeah, it's missable. So if you do happen to pick up this series, don't pick this up. The 3rd book I read in January was The Once and Future King by T.H. White, and this was published in the years between 1938 and 1958. So this was really made up of 4 books. The first 3 were initially published separately, and then they started being published all together along with the 4th one. The 4th one was never published separately, and they are basically one continuous storyline, so I really don't know why you would read them separately, to be honest. So this is a retelling of the King Arthur myth and legend, starting with his childhood all the way up to his death. This was another fantastic book. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads as well. So last year, gosh, I'm trying to think what month it was. It may have been August. I read the very famous and most classic rendition of the King Arthur legend, L'Amour d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory. And it was hard to get through. I didn't love it, but I was really glad that I'd read it and I found it interesting. But it was a hard read, let me tell you. But then, because I read that, I get to read things like this and understand it. You don't need to have read the King Arthur myth or L'Amour d'Arthur to understand the Once and Future King, but I got a lot out of it. I felt like because I felt like this stuck to the original stories enough to that I appreciated it, but yet they added in extra events and stuff that were so good, especially to Arthur's childhood. And just, there was a lot more depth and philosophical insight that I really enjoyed. The first half of this also was so funny. There was a lot of comedy. It didn't really continue that way the whole way through. There were moments of it, but I feel like the first half, I would say, it was pretty comical and witty, and the second half got more serious. Yeah, I feel like I don't read that many funny books. I guess wouldn't be classified as just a funny book, but I don't know, I don't come across too much humor in books, and when I do come across the right thing, it's just super enjoyable. And there were moments when I was literally laughing out loud with this. It could be pretty funny. Especially Merlin. Merlin was in it a lot in the beginning and during Arthur's childhood, and he was just hilarious and also very wise. He had some wonderful insight. Yeah, he was just absolutely hilarious. Arthur was very likable. I feel like in L'Amour d'Arthur, I didn't get to know Arthur very well, and I didn't really like him all that much, to be honest. And he was in this more, and he was very likable and just very idealistic, and you really couldn't help but sympathize with him and like him. I mean, in this, you're really following him from quite a young age, so how could you not? Guinevere and Lancelot, were kind of relatable in some of their relationship problems, and there was just more depth to their character and to their love story. Who else? Like I already said, I liked Merlin. All King Arthur's nephews are done very well and are interesting. Yeah, I really liked the exploration in this of war and might. Arthur in this and in L'Amour d'Arthur decides to use all the might that is going on at the time, like all the knights and all the jousting that is just very popular. But there wasn't much good coming out of it, He decided to use that kind of fad and put it to good use, so to use this might for right. And that's pretty noble in itself, but I like how in this it was taken farther. Arthur questioned whether this was right, whether might was even right at all, or whether war was even right at all. And I feel like these ideas were put into his head by Merlin, because Merlin in this book isn't really a big fan of jousting, and he makes fun of it a few times, which was quite funny, because in L'Amour d'Arthur, some of the hardest things to get through were the jousting scenes. And there were a lot of them, let me tell you. So I liked the exploration of that, and Merlin had a very interesting quote kind of about war and about nationalism that I really liked. I actually want to find it if I can. Let me see on my phone. Give me a moment. I always write my quotes down on my phone that I like. Okay. So, Merlin says, "I never could stomach these nationalists," he exclaimed. "The destiny of man is to unite, not to divide. If you keep on dividing, you end up as a collection of monkeys throwing nuts at each other out of separate trees." So, I don't know. I liked that quote a lot. It was interesting in relation to that to realize that T.H. White lived through 2 world wars, in his lifetime. So it's interesting to put that in perspective and why he would use the King Arthur legend to explore these types of things. And that's something I find so cool about the King Arthur legend, is that depending on the time period that you're telling those legends in, you can use it to explore so many different things. And so seeing this in the context of the time it was written in and then the author's lifespan was really interesting. And yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say about it. I enjoyed this so much, and I feel like there was a lot to it, so I wanted to make sure that I shared everything I wanted to say, but I think that was it. And again, I highly recommend this. And, you know, reading Lord Arthur is hard work. It's a big commitment. If you're not, like, that nerdy about literature like I am, but you want to read something, you know, about the legends of King Arthur, this is wonderful because, like I said, while it does add in a lot of stuff, it you still get a good part of the actual story, and just it was really wonderful. Oh, I forgot to mention one more thing. I don't know if this is important, but when I was talking about the characters, I didn't mention him. King Pellinore, who I don't know if you know about him, but he's an old knight, and he actually is in the Lord Arthur. And he's forever chasing the questing beast, which is this really bizarre creature, also in the Lord Arthur. It's part, I don't know, all these weird animals, like part serpent, part, you know, something else, like all these really weird things. And I always thought that was a bizarre part of Lord Arthur. And King Pellinore in this and the questing beast, there are like so many moments of him chasing it and their relationship to each other, and it had me laughing out loud. And then, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but this is kind of funny. King Pellinore at one point is kind of sad, he's kind of lovesick, and these two other knights want to cheer him up, and they know he likes chasing the questing beast. It gives him some sort of sense of purpose, but the questing beast isn't there. So they make this whole outfit of the questing beast, and they dress up and get in it together, and they go to act like the questing beast, and they have this whole thing down, which is just hilarious in itself. And then the actual questing beast shows up and falls in love with them. I don't know. I hope that's not like a spoiler or anything, or I hope that doesn't sound too weird, but I found that just hilarious. I don't know if I made it sound funny, but it was funny to me, and maybe if you know what I'm talking about, you would think that was funny. So anyway, enough rambling about the Once and Future King, but seriously, go pick it up. And final book I read this month was The Orenda by Joseph Boyden, and this was published in 2013, I believe, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads as well. While maybe I didn't love this as much as Middlemarch and the Once and Future King, I still love this. Like I said, besides the 12th Insight, which we just shouldn't have finished the series, I had a really good reading month in January. So this is historical fiction. Joseph Boyden is Canadian, and he writes about First Nations people of Canada in the 17th century, and some of their kind of earlier interactions with Europeans. And so this is told in 3 different perspectives, which I always like. I always like some good first person perspectives and switching it up, you know. One of them is a man named Bird. He is part of the Huron tribe, and we mostly follow the Huron tribe in this. And he is a rather respected warrior in his tribe. And then a girl named Snow Falls, and she is a Iroquois girl, and she's taken prisoner by the Huron and adopted by Bird. And then a man named Christophe, who is a French missionary, and he comes to live with the Huron to learn their ways and to try to gain converts. And yeah, so this was a really well done historical fiction novel. It's a very brutal period of history, not only with the colonization and all of that, but also with a lot of warfare between the First Nations people. But the human relationships in this, and like on a personal level, this was wonderful and interesting, and I loved all their relationships to each other. But yeah, in a historical context, this was interesting as well. I really loved reading about the Huron people, and just some of their culture and ways were really cool. Of course, as I guess you would imagine, this did really make me think just what a horrible thing it is, and such a shame that North America was colonized the way it was, and that we kind of took away this really like a lot of interesting cultures that were pretty cool for the most part. So yeah, so that's sad. But yeah, between the First Nations people, there was a lot of warring too, and that was really gruesome. So if you aren't wanting to pick up this book, and it is good, so I do recommend that you do. But be aware that there's a lot of gruesome torture in this. Actually, it was pretty brutal at some points, and that just made me think, especially right after reading The Once and Future King, it's made me think how far back just this human legacy of warfare and killing and torture and goes, and nobody's really exempt from it. Like, the Huron are cool people, but they're not really exempt from this human fault. Yeah, so I don't know, that just makes me sad, I suppose. But it kind of showed that this, I don't know, that this cycle of revenge, because that's really what it was, particularly here, doesn't really serve anything. It's kind of endless. It is kind of cool. We do get a little bit of, I don't know, relief from the cycle of revenge with Bird and Snowfall's relationship, because the Huron and the Iroquois are the tribes that are, at war with each other. And so you'd think, and like I said, Snowfalls is taken captive by the Huron tribe and adopted by Bird. So you'd think they wouldn't like each other. Like I said, the cycle of revenge in this book seems like it keeps going on, but with them it kind of stops, and that's where there's some sort of redemption. Snowfalls and Bird grow to love each other in like a father-daughter kind of way, I believe. Now, it's been a while since I've read this, but from what I remember, their love for each other in that kind of a way grows, and I feel like there's some redemption there, an end to the cycle of revenge, which is cool on a personal level. Yeah, so this was a wonderful book historically, personally, and but gruesome, so warning against that. So yeah, but again, highly recommended. So those are all the books I read in January. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm glad to be back. Sorry about the lighting, by the way. The only time, like I said, it's hard to find the space to film this, and it's kind of late. I didn't get a film earlier, which is a shame. So it's kind of dark. I have this lamp on. Don't know if that helps. I always realize that lighting can like make a big difference as to how a video looks, but hopefully it's not too bad. What else? So I write written reviews for all the books, right? That I have been doing, because I couldn't give up on doing book reviews altogether, because I truly enjoy it. It's become like a really important part of my reading experience, but there's no reason for me to stop doing written reviews, so I'm always doing those. And so I do those on Goodreads and Tumblr, so I'll link both those below so you can check out written reviews there. And a while back I started a Patreon, and because I haven't really been recording videos, it hasn't really been a big thing, but if you'd like to support me there, please feel free to. I'll link that below. That always helps me out. Hopefully I'll be doing videos more, but I am still like reviewing elsewhere. Yeah, so tonight I have some more time, so I think I'm going to continue recording. So I'll at least do my February wrap up. Be cool if I could do them all, but I don't know if I could do that. So we'll see. Bye for now.